Hey book readers, this is the B-Side Book Reviews, and today we are going to look at Michael Crichton's Eaters of the Dead. Okay, I've got my skull shirt on. I know it's Harley Davidson, but hey, it's the only one I can find. You know, I bought this book at a Goodwill. I don't know why I was in there, but I remember buying a bunch of knives. So I had a collection of knives in one hand and this book, The Eaters of the Dead, in the other hand. And I went to pay for it, and the lady gave me this weird look. Knives? Eaters of the Dead? Hey, what's the problem? Let's check it out. Okay, Eaters of the Dead. Now with this title, one might think this was some gruesome horror story. Or perhaps a cookbook. A cookbook on the preparation of beef, pork, or poultry. After all, anyone who eats meat is an eater of the dead. Well, fear not, because this is no cookbook, or really a horror story for that matter. In fact, it could just as easily been called My Winter Vacation, with a bunch of foul, degenerate, uncivilized Vikings. Now, it was all written in first person, kind of like it was, I don't know, like a travel diary or journal or something like that. Okay, here's what happens. This Arabian guy from Baghdad enjoys his leader's young sexually deprived wife just a wee little bit too much. Therefore, he's sent off on some mission to meet with some faraway foreign leader. Some foreign leader far away from the young sexually deprived wife. Well, on the way, he runs across a Viking settlement in southern Russia. Yes, Vikings hung out in Russia. In fact, the word Russia comes from a Viking tribe, or a clan, or a posse, or whatever the Vikings called their little groups of people. Just so you know. So while our hero is hanging out with the Vikings, the son of some Scandinavian Viking comes out floating down the Volga River and tells of the terrible mist people who come out of the forest and attack their fair folks of the Northland. Now, evidently, all those tough, badass Viking dudes up there can't handle this little problem. So they send this guy all the way down the Volga River to gather up 12 warriors to go all the way back up the river to deal with the evil plague of these mysterious mist folks. But wait a minute. It's not 12 warriors they want 13. And who might that 13th guy be? Oh yes, our man from Baghdad. The angel of death chooses him. Now apparently, every Viking village had some old broad they called the angel of death. Now, I'm not sure what the job qualifications for this position would be, but I'm guessing she didn't have much of a social life. Such an occupation just would not read well on Match.com. Angel of Death. Likes Italian food. Likes death metal. Oh well, back to the story. So, our Arab buddy hooks up with the Norsemen, and together they travel up the Volga, back to the northern homeland to kick some misty medieval ass. Here they deal with the mist people, and most of them get pretty much sliced up, except for our hero, of course, who manages to defeat the evil beings of the mist. And then he pretty much heads back home. Yeah, it's a cute little travel story. Okay, the guy's name in this book is Ibn Fadlan, I think. And even though this book has this really kind of gruesome title, and we have swords and skulls and all cool stuff like that, In my opinion, the story deals with less blood and guts along with a little death and destruction, but concentrates more on our hero's view of the Norsemen and their vile Viking ways. Now, he was from the Middle East, where things were a bit more clean and civil. So when he got stuck with all these Vikings, he was just a bit appalled by what he witnessed. Now, apparently, these Viking folks had no sense of decency or modesty, whether it had to do with sex or bodily functions. Okay, in one account of this book, he talks about how these men of the North would enjoy their meal, enjoy their women, and then they would relieve themselves, all without having to leave the table. Yes, life was simple for those of the Northland. Kind of disgusting, but simple. Simply disgusting. So does this plot sound like a movie you've seen? Well, there's a good reason for that. This book was the inspiration for the Antonio Banderas movie, The 13th Warrior, that came out around 1999. What? You didn't see it? Well, few folks did. Apparently, it didn't do that great at the box office. Now, I suppose the title, Eaters of the Dead, was a little too dramatic for the cinema world. And as I recall, the movie was nothing spectacular, but if I remember correctly, it showed a lot more Viking blood and guts and less Viking culture. The book, however, gives a pretty good view of all things Norsemen, all the things they did in their life. And boys and girls, it's not pretty. Sounds like a hell of a good time, though, but not pretty. Now, apparently the Viking chicks were pretty tough old broads who liked it a little on the rough side. And the men wore their wounds from an evening with enjoying the ladies as proudly as they would wear their battle scars. Let's see, I got an axe scar over here, and over here I got teeth marks. Whoa! Now, evidently the two activities had much in common. Even though our author did indulge us in some pretty gruesome battles, there was very little eating of the dead, as the title might imply. However, the book gives a great insight on the life and the times of the Norseman. Yes, there's all kind of foul stuff going on in this story, but nothing that would make a really good book title. However, there are lots of things going on in this story that make Eaters of the Dead sound pretty tame. Maybe they should have called it Wild Viking Women. That would have worked. Okay, this story was actually taken from a real man's adventure. Ivan Fadlin really did take a trip with the Vikings. And the book intro is kind of all about the man himself, Mr. Fadlin, not much about the story. And of course, there's a follow-up at the end where Mr. Crichton, our author, likes to talk a little bit about the book itself and give us a little more insight. And then, of course, we had some footnotes that sometimes might even take up a half a page. So, take away all of this idle chit-chat, and the book is probably only about 200 pages. Now it happened. And that's how our story ends. Right in the middle of a sentence. No period. Just, it's dead. Okay, there's a note here afterwards that says this is how this travel journal was found. Right in the middle of a sentence. Which kind of makes you wonder how much of this is really true. Okay, as stated earlier, this is from a real man's travel. And the story is just filled with footnotes, which kind of add to the story or take away, however you want to look at it. This one here is about a half a page long. Anyway, now at the end of the book is a most interesting note about these funky mist people. Now those who came out of the mist and attacked our Vikings were believed to be the last remains of the Neanderthal man. Whoa! Now I never got that from the movie. I guess I had pretty much lost interest by then. Now get this, our author, Michael Crichton, he really gets into it. He goes on to tell how the story was actually a more in-depth version of Beowulf. Whoa! Now doesn't that sound like something you'd say in your 3000 English lit class just to impress your teacher? Or the hot chicks in the class maybe? Okay, now I can be all well-read and intellectual and say, by George, I too realize such a similarity. Those people in the mist were undoubtedly a group of hazy grindles. But, to be honest, I didn't have a clue. Beowulf? Neanderthals? Not a clue. I thought they were some kind of, I don't know, ghetto Vikings maybe. All of these Vikings had these really wild Viking names, and I was pretty much lost from the get-go. There was only 12 of them. You would think that I could have kept up with all of them, or at least some of them. I guess I was more fascinated about the way they took their women at will, whenever they felt amorous, or had nothing better to do. Oh yes! To be a Viking. Then again, these women didn't bathe regularly, and personal hygiene was probably about as foreign to these chicks as the Hubble telescope. Yeah, that kind of takes away the excitement. Now, as for our story's hero, he wasn't a warrior of any kind, but he was thrown into this situation and survived. Yes, he traveled to the bleak, frozen north, copulated with foul, nasty women, and kicked some Neanderthal ass. You've got to love a guy like that. And yes, one further note. His description of mead, or honey wine, was so great and so very accurate. Okay, his description stated as this: the dreadful foul drink called mead is made from honey, then fermented. Okay. It is the sourest, blackest, vilest stuff ever invented by man. Oh wow. Yes, for all of us Renaissance fair people, we know that this description of mead, well, is all too true. Indeed, mead can be some pretty nasty stuff. But we still drink it. Don't know why. Okay, that was our look at Eaters of the Dead. Not a bad book, better book than movie. Like that never happens, huh? I kind of wonder about their Neanderthal man theory, considering this was set around 921 AD. I'm not sure how many Neanderthals were running around in 921 AD. But what do I know? I'm not an anthropologist. Anyway, this is usually where I tell you to go read a book. Instead, we're going to talk a little bit about mead, the honey wine. So instead of grabbing a book, grab your wine glass. Okay, I've got a bottle of mead here. Camelot mead, no less. Boy, now doesn't that sound all medieval? Actually, this was kind of the wine of choice for our European people way back in the day. In fact, they used to have what they called mead halls. That's where they'd go in there and just probably drink this stuff like water. Well, actually the water back then was pretty disgusting, so they just probably drank it like mead. They probably had a mead trench behind the hall just to go puke when they drank too much mead. Yes, in fact, actually in the first scene in Beowulf, they're probably in a mead hall. Now, the first time I ever tried mead was at a Renaissance festival. Yes, they love this stuff at Renaissance festivals. And in fact, the first time I ever tasted it, I was just like the guy in the book. It was the foulest. It was the grossest. The nastiest. Okay, he didn't say gross or nasty. I did. It was just, no more, please. No more torture. Anyway, now this meat you buy in stores, now it's a little sweeter. It's really not that bad. I think in the Renaissance festivals, they try to be a little more authentic, which means a little more vile, disgusting, nasty, gross. But anyway, now if you want to go buy a bottle of mead, you can't buy it like where you buy your normal wine. You can't buy it like in a Walmart or a Target or an Albertsons or a Quick Trip or anywhere else fine wines are sold. Well, as far as I'm concerned anyway, you actually have to buy it in a liquor store. They claim that the alcohol content of this is so high, it has to be in a regular liquor store along with your rum and your tequila and your bourbon and all that kind of stuff. Personally, I can drink this like Moscato. It doesn't do anything more to me, but that's just me. So anyway, you might want to try it if you never tried it. It's a honey wine. It's got a little bee here on the label. It's got one back here too. So the next time you have a Vikings watching party or a Game of Thrones watching party or just want to hang out and be medieval, go get yourself some mead. We're going to pour us a little bit of glass here. That's probably enough. Yeah, it just kind of looks like wine. Here, you got the cork to sniff. Yeah, whatever. Have some mead. Okay, it's okay, I guess.